With the new installment in the Conjuring franchise, The Devil Made Me Do It, I thought it would be the perfect time to cover the true story of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, the 24-year-old the movie is based on. The movie itself is obviously a Hollywood production, so it's usually loosely based on what really happened. But given the real story was one of the first and most publicized cases in history due to Arnie's plea of possession, the truth is actually stranger than fiction in this case. So, let's dive into the real story of Arnie Johnson. But before we get started, hit that like button to keep the devil out, and subscribe to the channel followed by the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Arnie Johnson was a normal 24-year-old in the town of Brookfield, Connecticut. Arnie's girlfriend, Debbie Glatzel, said he was an upstanding human who wouldn't have hurt a fly. But back on February 17, 1981, Arnie Johnson and 40-year-old Alan Bono were having drinks and began to get into an argument, which led to Arnie fatally stabbing Bono. But how did this seemingly normal man suddenly become a killer? Well, let's take it back several months. Enter the Glatzels. Based on first-hand reports from Debbie Glatzel, her family, as well as Wanda and Arnie Johnson, Debbie's younger brother, 11-year-old David Glatzel, had been battling a possession for over a year prior. It all started when a rental property they recently acquired needed to be cleaned. David, Arnie, and Debbie went into the home, and as they began, David claimed to have encountered an old man that presented himself as a demonic beast that spoke Latin, pushing him, told him that he would claim his soul, and even threatened to harm the Glatzel family if they moved in. As David informed his sister and Arnie, they just brushed it off as a kid that didn't want to clean up, for they didn't believe in that sort of stuff. Shortly after, the family moved in, and although they heard strange noises coming from the attic, no one but David ever encountered the old man. After 12 days and a number of strange and terrifying occurrences that took place, such as David experiencing night terrors, bruises and scratches would suddenly appear, strange visions, bizarre behavior, and failed attempts by a priest to bless the home, an exhausted and drained family enlisted the demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren as a last-ditch effort to cure David, as put by the family. The Glatzels and the Warrens began to have multiple priests petition the church in order to perform a proper exorcism. Lorraine said she witnessed a black mist manifest, which is a sign of an evil presence. Debbie and the family claimed to have seen David beaten and choked by an invisible force, with marks all over his body and neck. Reports were also made that David would hiss, growl, recite the Bible and Paradise Lost, levitate, have spasms or convulsions, and David would go through 3 lesser exorcisms from several priests in the meantime. It was determined that as many as 43 demons were possessing David. During one of the exorcisms, Arnie Johnson challenged the demons and told them to possess him instead of an 11-year-old boy, for he would fight them tooth and nail. It was reported the demons became amused and laughed at Arnie, eventually accepting his challenge. Lorraine Warren attested Arnie's taunts and told him it was a terrible idea, but at that point, it was too late. Lorraine even went as far as to contact Brookfield police in October of 1980, warning them that the situation had become very dangerous. The demons were said to have left David and confronted Arnie and attacked him viciously. The demons went as far as to take control of his car, crashing it into a tree, though Arnie was unharmed. Arnie returned to the rental property to check out a well that was supposed to house the demons. It is here that Arnie lucidly encountered the demons, making eye contact and becoming possessed. Shortly after, Debbie and Arnie left their home and got their own apartment. Debbie got a job as a dog groomer hired by Alan Bono, a new resident to the town. See, Bono owned the business and lived in the apartments above and befriended Debbie and Arnie. It was said they befriended Arnie for he liked to talk about himself and share stories and experiences of his travels. and being a group of kids that lived and grew up in a small town, found the stories fascinating. After moving into their new apartment, Arnie began to show signs similar to David. Debbie feared that he had now become possessed. She claimed that he would be in a trance-like state, growling and hallucinating, but never had a memory of it. Arnie, Debbie, and Alan would hang out regularly, usually over a couple drinks because Alan was said to be a drinker. And then, one February 16th, 1981, Arnie, Debbie, Arnie's sister Wanda, and Debbie's cousin all headed over to the kennel that Alan owned and Debbie worked at. Alan bought the group lunch and, of course, grabbed a few drinks at the local bar. After lunch, they returned to the kennel and Alan's apartment. It was said Alan was extremely intoxicated and in an agitated state. Debbie advised everyone to leave the apartments. It was at this point Alan was said to have grabbed a hold of Debbie's younger cousin, refusing to let her go. Johnson, hearing the commotion, returned to the apartment demanding Alan release her. These are reports directly from Wanda Johnson, as told by the police. Mary was released immediately, running to the car as Debbie stood in between the two men, trying to calm the situation down. Wanda tried with all of her strength to yank Arnie away, but could not budge him. He stood there, growling like an animal. He picked up a 5-inch knife laying nearby that he always carried with him, and proceeded to stab Alan 4 to 5 times, with one from stomach to heart, ultimately killing Alan Bono. Johnson was found 2 miles from the scene of the crime shortly. The Alan Bono murder would be the first murder in the history of Brookfield. The day after the murder, Lorraine told the Brookfield police that Johnson was possessed when committing the murder. Of course, this theory sparked a huge media frenzy, mainly due to the Warrens' involvement, but also the bizarre defense of the case. And even Arnie's attorney, Martin Minnella, received countless calls from all over the world asking about what was deemed the demon murder trials. The defense was set, murder due to possession, but Martin had never handled a case like this. So he headed to Europe, where he enlisted the help of an attorney that had had several cases prior, just like this one. But none ever went to trial. The trial began on October 28, 1981, the perfect time for a case like this. Manila tried to plead not guilty by virtue of demonic possession. The problem was trying to prove such a defense. The police department, who originally said that they didn't rule it out, and that this case made them question their beliefs, later said in court that it was a rather routine case with motive, and even stuck to that story later on. The priest that had done David's exorcisms didn't want to cooperate or get involved, even with threats of subpoena. Though none of this really mattered in the end, for Judge Robert Callahan argued no such defense could ever exist in the court of law due to lack of evidence, and that it would be irrelevant and unscientific to allow related testimony. Thus, the defense was forced to argue a different side. So, they transitioned to self-defense case. But by that point, it was too late due to time. They were in the middle of a trial after all. The bizarre argument of possession really dampened that self-defense. And though many believed that Arnie had a great self-defense case, if they would have originally used that as an argument, many believed he may have even gotten off. The jury wasn't allowed to consider demonic possession at all during the trial. So after 3 days and 15 hours, they came back with a guilty verdict, convicting Arnie on November 24th, 1981 of first-degree manslaughter. He would be sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. The case sparked a frenzy that led to television, films, books, movies, you name it. The Warrens played a big part in all of it. And though they did stress that profits would be shared with the family, and $2,000 was confirmed to be paid by the publisher of the book, titled The Devil in Connecticut. Later, David and his brother Carl Glatzel sued the publishers for defamation and right to privacy, and claimed that the whole possession was a hoax fabricated by the Warrens to capitalize on David's mental health, and that the family was told that this would make them millionaires and get Arnie out of jail. Lorraine, though, stuck to her story, defending the work with the family, and claimed that the 6 priests involved deemed the possession valid, and that they did not fake the supernatural events. She and the publicizing company said that everything was done because the family wanted their story told. They claimed to have over 100 hours of footage of interviews with the family to make sure that they got everything correct, so nothing was fabricated. Last little note though, Carl Sr. later said he never claimed or told anyone that his son David was possessed. In the end, Arnie Johnson did 5 of the possible 20 years based on good behavior. As put by the prison, he was an upstanding and exceptional inmate that did all that was asked of him. In prison, Arnie got a degree and even married Debbie Glatzel. To this day, they both stick to their beliefs that their experiences were real and that Arnie was truly possessed. It was put, this was a battle between good and evil, but today, evil had won. So, there you have it. The full, real story of the infamous Devil Made Me Do It case. As always, this is a discussion, so join it down in the comments below, and let me know what you think. Was Arnie Johnson really possessed? Or was he just a young kid that had too much to drink and just sort of snapped? Overall, this is an incredibly fascinating case that is truly overshadowed by the possession defense. There were many factors at play, regardless of whether or not you believe Arnie was really possessed by a demon. This case was a true case of faith and belief, and had many questioning theirs. In the end, a man was murdered, and a spectacle was made. To this day, Arnie has never showed signs of aggression or possession, and with the movie out, again, it shines a spotlight on the whole events. We will sort of get to see how much the film makes accurate and what is sort of dramatized, so it'll be interesting with that. But whenever you see the movie, compare it to this true story, and let me know what you think. If you haven't yet, hit that like button to stop being possessed, and subscribe to the channel followed by the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Until next time.